All right, cool. So this is what I want to talk about this morning. Who you were does not define who you can become, right? This is a really important message in many ways, because I've noticed this for years, that people get trapped in limiting beliefs from the past that constantly replay themselves in the present, right? And life is just one of these gigantic self-fulfilling prophecies, and the stories that we tell about ourselves, right, most often come true. And very often, and I've seen this too many times, the stories in our past actually hold us back, and then we just keep retelling them in the present and making the same mistakes, or being held back by the same limiting beliefs, and we just play these loops over and over and around and around. And as a wise man once said, doing the same things over and over and expecting a different result is the first sign of madness. And I hear things like this all the time. Like, I could never take a break from alcohol because whenever I've tried in the past, I failed. I couldn't write a book because I can't spell. That was me. Right? And you look into your past, right, for ways to behave in the present. So constantly we do this, right? We reflect. That's just how our brains work, how psychology works. We quickly glance back into our past. Can I do this? Have I got the confidence to do this? Oh no, I couldn't do it in the past. There was a litany of slip-ups. So what happens? You just constantly make the same mistake over and over again, or that limiting belief sticks around. For example, so many people that I know are like, I could never speak in public. I could never do that, right? And very often when you break it down and you really get under the bonnet of it, you realise that when they were 12, they stood up in front of the class and just had a wobble, right? And they couldn't do it and they were fearful. And that experience from the age of 12 has been replaying itself over and over and over and over and over again every time they were faced with this, fearful event of making a speech or speaking in public. It was like, I can't do it. Why? Because when I was 12, which then replays when they were 14, which replays when they were 20 and 30 and 40, and we just get caught in these negative loops. So the key to a lot of this stuff, right, in life is actually starting from where you are today, looking forward. Today, looking forward. Like, who are you today? And then projecting to the future, rather than always, because we always will to a degree, but rather than always looking into your past for clues about how to behave in the present, especially when there's limiting beliefs in the past that have been holding you back, that have been tripping you up, right? So what I want to try and get you all doing today is looking forward. It's becoming the person that you want to be today, looking forward. Today, looking forward. We'll get to a little exercise in a second. But my own experience with this was around alcohol. It's a brilliant one. It's an easy one to talk about. I built this persona as a sort of larger than life drinker, for want of a better word. It's how I did business, how I celebrated, commiserated, met my friends, met my wife, all of that sort of stuff. That was me, right? I'd created this story around being that person. And whenever I found myself in a certain situation, I reflected into the past. That was me. That was who I was. Therefore, that influenced continually my behaviour in the present. But then there came this point where I was like, I don't think I want to do that anymore. I don't think that is the real me. But trying to unwind that was incredibly difficult, right? Because I built this story. And as I mentioned, life is one gigantic self-fulfilling prophecy. And we become the stories that we tell about ourselves. And I was telling this story over and over again. That's just who I am. I'm a drinker. I'm a larger-than-life entertainer, broker, character. That's just what I do. And that story was constantly tripping me up in the present moment until I decided, do you know what? I think I want to do something different. But I found it so incredibly difficult to make that change because I kept reflecting back. And what was also interesting, other people found it difficult to accept that change because they were also reflecting back and going, hold on, but you're that person. You're that drinker guy. You're not this sort of super healthy, wants to be all about his family and all about his career and all about fitness and health. That's not you. You're this guy. But actually the truth was, and I think so many of us discover this as we move along, that actually that persona wasn't me. I wasn't changing, I was just reverting back to my authentic self. I wasn't this larger-than-life, flamboyant extrovert, which alcohol sort of basically gave me a quick route into, I was actually someone who's quite introverted, someone that just wanted to study and learn and grow. And actually a lot of those things that were associated with that old persona, that just wasn't me anymore. I wasn't comfortable with it anymore. But trying to unwind that was incredibly difficult until I started looking forward, until I started thinking, actually, who do I want to be today? And who do I want to be in 6 months, a year, 5 years, or 10 years? And I stopped looking back for clues as to how I should behave now. It was like, right, who am I? And actually, when I took a break from alcohol, that gave me that glimpse of who I really was. Someone who was much more introverted. But I loved it and I wanted to own that. Someone that wanted to study, wanted to be with his family, that wanted to fire up his career. So I just stopped in that moment and went, right, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to look at this differently. I'm going to make a list of who I am today, my authentic, as best I can see it, because the truth is, it's actually quite hard to find out who you really are, because we just have these years and years and years of layers to protect us in many ways that we sort of smother ourselves with. And trying to unpick that and getting back down to the real you is incredibly difficult. But what I will say, just while I'm on a roll, finding out who you really are is one of the greatest discoveries you will ever make. And aligning with that authentic you, you become superpowered, like you do, because you're not pretending anymore. You don't need alcohol to turn into someone, in my example, that you're not. You can just be you. Warts and all, just show up as you. There's something really super powerful about that. And when I got into that moment and went, do you know what? This is who I am and this is who I want to be. I start looking forward. Everything started to change, right? And it's such a powerful example. And here's another thing about that. You can do that in an instant, literally an instant. Right now, you can decide, this is who I am, this is who I want to be. Now, the caveat around that is not that instantly your behaviours will change to match that person. There's a bit of a lag time on that. For example, let's just say, historically, you've never really been someone that's been able to exercise. It's always been sporadic, if at all. Therefore, traditionally, when you're starting an exercise routine, you're reflecting to the past and your litany of past failures just repeat themselves in the present. Because it's like, I can't do that. I'm not someone that exercises. I don't get this movement thing. Look, I always fail. But you're just repeating the same thing as mentioned. But what happens is if you make that decision now, which you can in the moment, and go, do you know what? I'm going to own this. I think everyone inherently should move their bodies, right? I want to be that person. I am going to be that person. From today onwards, I'm going to be that person that moves their body every day. And in the future, that's where I want to be. You can make that decision in a second. Now, the caveat, that doesn't mean that instantly your actions will show up to support that. It doesn't mean that instantly, every single day from that moment on, that you will exercise every day. But you become the stories you tell, right? Right back to that first messaging. You become the stories that you tell. Start telling that story about yourself to yourself, that you're someone that exercises every day, that you're someone in the future that will exercise every day. Start believing in that story. Start owning that story. And here's the secret. Your actions start to catch up with that story. Right? It's unbelievably powerful. And you can change that in a second, even if your actions don't flow. Do you get me? Keep showing up. I am someone that exercises every day. Become that person. I am someone that can write books. I am someone that can eat in a certain way. I am someone that can power up my career. I am someone that can, be the best parent or mother or husband or whatever it is. Right? You become that person from today looking forward. It's really powerful how quickly that can happen when you stop reflecting back and making the same mistakes in the present moment. It's unbelievably how quick it can happen. And then back to my own example. So I went from this, again, larger than life sort of extrovert type boozing broker character. And in my mind, I thought, this is going to take years for people to forget. And I'm going to be constantly fighting this uphill battle of people that I haven't seen, or clients, colleagues going, come on, we want that old Andy back. We want this guy back. And in my mind, I thought that's going to last pretty much forever. No one's ever going to forget who I was, right? But what was really amazing, and it only took a matter of months, not years, it was months. I would say about 6 months into me becoming me again and, not drinking, eating super healthily, lost all the weight, got super fit, all about the family, all about the career, all about productivity. I'd say 6 months into that journey, and don't get me wrong, it was hard. 6 months into it, suddenly something changed. It was unbelievable, genuinely unbelievable. People started then to look at me and go, oh, he's that super healthy guy. He's that super fit guy. He's the guy that does the plant-based thing. He's the guy that doesn't drink thing. He's the guy that's all about his family. It was unbelievable. It was like they'd forgotten the 15, 20 years prior to that of me showing up every day as this other person. It was like it was gone, it's vanished. And if you went back into the city now and spoke to, basically anyone that used to know me, I bet barely any of them would associate me with their old self. It's amazing how quick that can happen. And I think it can become daunting, and it's a bit fearful at times when we make change, because we want to cling to the old. We don't like to get out of our comfort zone, but very often clinging to the old, those old stories, is what's tripping you up in the present. And it takes a lot of courage to make changes like that, to revert to your authentic self, to be someone who starts from today looking forward. But here's the key. I think even having the courage to show up and spend a bit of time with me on a Monday morning says to me that you're thinking differently, says to me that you're maybe willing to start from today looking forward rather than always reflecting back on things that you feel that are holding you back. Because too many people get caught in that loop. Too many people get caught in that negative cycle of believing they're someone that they're not, and then just repeating their mistakes over and over and over again. But this is the key message, right? Who you were does not define who you can become. Like, you can start today and build the person that you want to be, right? And build is the key word there, right? We create ourselves. I absolutely believe in that. We can align with who we really are, and then we can create ourselves going forward. The people that are really crushing it, the people that are happy and vibrant and loving life, are deliberately creating their own environment through their beliefs. They're not just showing up and hoping for the best. They're doing the work. They're carving out that path for themselves. I totally believe in that. That's why this whole self-development thing for me is so important, because that's ultimately what it is. It's you developing yourself going forward. And now, with everything that's happening in the world, it's more important than ever, I think, to align with who you really are and then build your future going forward. Because for many of us, it's going to be an uncertain future. It's going to be a different future. It's going to be changed. But you can adapt when you take control. That is the key message in here. Anyway, I just wanted to wrap it up there. I'll do some questions in a second. But just to say, if you enjoy this stuff, please just share it. I'm happy to keep showing up every day around this time, sort of 7:30 a.m, to keep banging out some of this stuff, if it helps, because I love doing it anyway, and I've got thousands of these examples because I write them out all the time, so I can just pick one up, drop it in, and then give it some based on the back of whatever the topic is, and I enjoy it, and hopefully it's helpful to you. And as I mentioned just recently, I think people showing up live at the moment is really important to let you know that there's other people like you out there going through the similar things, are also going to keep it real, going to keep it positive, going to keep showing up and use this as an opportunity to grow stronger, because these events will keep happening more and more often. So I think now is the time for you and I to really start showing up, to look from today, looking forward, carve out these really bright futures for ourselves, even in these uncertain times. Cool. Let's do this.